Hey guys, it's Sarah, and I really hope no one can hear me right now because I feel like I can hear people out in the hall. I'm just gonna go ahead with it because who the fuck cares? So I'm going to be filming a video just kind of talking about like how I study because I feel like that is something everyone does at one point in their life, so it's pretty applicable to really anyone watching this video. So I've actually been wanting to film this video for a bit now, and the reason I'm filming this video, honestly, if you asked me like even 5 months ago, I don't think I could have filmed this video and like actually been able to give good advice. And the reason I say that is because I do struggle with like a learning disability, and that is ADD, ADHD. A lot of people have it, more people than you probably realize, and I just like recently got diagnosed for it. I've always known I've had it, but like I've just never really gone to a doctor about it or gotten medicated or anything. So I finally did that, and like now that I'm actually like in the right mindset and my brain is kind of wired correctly, I guess that sounds weird, but like now that it's like actually functioning like more of a normal person, I guess, it has been easier for me to like figure out a good way to study and just like how to study and be motivated. So that's the only reason I feel like I can actually film this video now, and this is actually something a lot of people ask me how to do, so I feel like this is a good video to film. So I feel like in high school it just kind of seems like there's this like weird connotation with college where people think you just like have no time but to study and go to class, but the thing about college is that you have way less class than you do in high school. So in high school you have class from like what, 8 to 3 or something like that, usually like a good chunk of your day, and then you go home and like that's the free time you have and you get to decide if you do homework or not with it. But in college, the average person I feel like will usually have like 2 classes a day, like, and maybe 3. I don't know, it just kind of depends on the person, but I'm taking 15 credits right now. That gives me a lot of free time, and I kind of just like get to decide how I manage that. So it's actually really not that hard to like manage your time in college. You have a lot of time, just kind of depends on how you use it, I guess. While you do have a lot of time, I feel like some people kind of spend it the wrong way, and like, not that it's bad to go have fun, but sometimes people forget that that's not the only thing you do in life. So just like you have to keep that in mind. You just have to learn time management. That's like the first key thing that you have to learn in college. And the next thing is never cram. I have done this so much. I swear like that's all I would ever do, but studying like a few days before the test and all the way up until the test is so much more efficient. You actually like start to remember everything better. It's kind of like something everyone tells you though, so can I move that one out of the way? It takes a lot of like dedication and motivation to do that and like figure out a good way to study so that you actually stay focused, and it took me a long time to do that. It took me like a good 18 years to do that, so you just have to kind of learn like your own technique that is good for you. I'll tell you like what I do, but I find that when I copy how other people study, that is when I do the worst. I just never remember it. I focus more on like the technique of studying than the actual stuff I'm trying to learn. It's nice to get some ideas and inspiration from them, but it's never really the smart thing to just flat out copy how someone studies, because your brain isn't like really wired to do the same exact thing and learn things the same exact way as someone else might be. I'm so sorry that people are playing music right now, but we're just gonna keep going. This is what happens all the time in my hall, so I guess I'll give an example of how I study. There was one class that I took last term that was just kind of like the reason I finally went and did something about my like ADD. That was my psych class, Psych 201. I don't know if other schools have that or something, but it's basically just mind and brain. You learn about like cognition and all that. That's not important. But the thing about that class is it was like super hard. The teacher's lectures were just PowerPoint slides, and she just like make you write everything down pretty much, and it was just super hard to follow. It wasn't engaging at all. It was a 500-person lecture, and it's just like really hard to pay attention in those classes because there's so many people. So it's really up to you to use your free time and like your own time to actually learn the information in those kinds of classes. So that is what I had to do, and obviously at first I struggled a lot in that class, and that is why I decided to do something about my ADD, but that's besides the point. So basically this teacher would give us a study guide before every test, like a few days before the test, but she'd also teach us literally the day before the test, like the material on the test. So it was like super stressful. But what I would do is during class I would take out my laptop and I would use Quizlet and just like copy down everything she mentioned in class, like kind of just have the term and the definition. And honestly I would never really go back to that Quizlet, but I didn't have time to write things down because it was so fast paced, so writing things down just like wasn't worth it. I don't know how anyone could have done that in that fast pace of a class, so I would just kind of like listen to what she was saying and not really like write anything down because I just wouldn't have been learning anything that way. So I've tried like many different study methods. I've tried just using the Quizlets I make to study and like using the flashcard features on there and all that and like the little games, but as much as I thought those helped me, they definitely didn't. I feel like it kind of made me memorize more of the things I wrote down as opposed to the deeper meaning or anything. I feel like Quizlet just doesn't really work for me in that aspect. I don't know why. It might work for you, it just doesn't work for me. And I've also tried note cards, so it's not like online, it's just like paper, but that also doesn't work for me. I just start to memorize the definition as opposed to like what it actually means, so that's why I don't do note cards or Quizlet. What I do is I'll usually just write everything down. Once she like gave us the study guide in that class, I just write every single word down with the definition, and anything that I just like didn't really understand, I'd write down again. And the reason I say you shouldn't copy somebody's studying techniques is literally, I'll just show you why, because I have shown people how I study, just like the pages in my notebook that I use to study for this class, and they have been like, how the hell can you read that? But it's literally like my brain can understand it, and that's all that matters. It might not make any sense to you, but like it literally just matters to me. So this is probably gonna look really confusing, but this is my notebook. It's just like a bunch, can you even see that? It's just like a bunch of words, like there's stuff like in the margins, like kind of pointing to words, and like just random little definitions. Like there's so much of it too. And keep in mind, this is all for one test. I had 4 of these tests throughout the term, so it was a lot to study for. This one was from another test. It's just like so many words. I lowered the exposure so you could see it better, but it's like so many words, so many highlights, so many colors. Like for some reason I just like love using colors because it's easier for me to like differentiate something when it's a different color or if I highlight it or something. So that's the reason there's so many colors and squiggly lines and highlights and all of that. Like literally look at this page. Like that looks so confusing all up here. I swear like nobody understands this but me. That's why I say you shouldn't listen to how other people study. It's really just like up to how your brain works, how you study. On top of this, see, like when you guys ask why we don't film that often, this is why. Okay, my neighbor just stopped blasting his music, so I'm just gonna try to start filming again. I think where I left off is I was saying that, I don't even know if I started saying this, but basically if something doesn't make sense to me and like the definition the teacher gave us just wasn't clear enough to me, I'll usually go on Google and like do more research. I know it sounds tedious, but it's honestly not that bad. You just like type in the word and you just like try to understand that definition instead of the one your teacher gave you if that one just doesn't make sense. But you kind of have to be careful with that because sometimes Google has the wrong kind of definition or something. So yeah, for these kinds of like fast-paced classes, it is so essential for you to do most of the learning outside of class. Like it sucks, but that's just like how it works, and I had to get used to it that way. So I guess on the topic of that class, we actually did learn about like memory and stuff, and there was a little bit of a unit where we kind of learned about like how we memorize things and the most efficient ways to memorize things. So a lot of people think that like repetition and stuff is like the best way to memorize something, but it actually isn't. Usually if you get like a deeper meaning of something and you're able to like relate it to things actually in your life, then you're more likely to remember it. So I don't know, that's what our professor told us, so that's honestly like what I've kind of been doing. I just like having an example to go with a definition as opposed to just like memorizing the definition is just kind of how I do things. It's just a lot easier. And then also on top of that, studying with people is so helpful. If you know people in that class and you're struggling in it, get like a study group, study with one other person even. Like just having other ideas if something doesn't make sense to you really helps. I did that a lot in this class. I'd just like ask someone what something meant, or I'd study with someone else in that class and we just kind of like talk about things, and it's really helpful that way. So that's just like another tip. Also taking breaks and not cramming. Like back to the cramming thing, you shouldn't sit and like study for hours on end. You should always just like kind of take a little mental breather. So like for example, when I study, I usually write down a page, or like if we have like a subcategory within the unit, I'll usually just do like one of those, and then I'll just like take a break, scroll through Instagram, like kind of get my mind off of it, and then go go back to studying. Sorry, I feel like I keep looking out my window. It's so distracting, but I gotta keep it open for the natural light. But yeah, so actually just like taking breaks is way better because it's a lot less stressful and overwhelming that way. The next thing is to get sleep. I know a lot of people that will just like stay up all night cramming, and I don't understand how they do it because you're just gonna be delusional while you're actually taking the test, so it's really just inefficient. I mean, unless it works for you, keep going, but it really just in most cases doesn't work. The last thing that I'll talk about is when you're actually in class before the test. So like normally in class, before class starts, I'll just like go on my phone, scroll through social media and all that just because I'm bored, I'm filling the time. But instead of doing that on the actual day of the test, I'll usually just like look over my notes one last time just to have everything fresh in my head, and I've honestly found that it really helps, especially if one thing in particular is just like really not staying in your head, so you can just have that the most fresh in your memory. So that's something else I do. I think that is everything that I wanted to go over. But yeah, I hope that helped you. Like I said, it is really hard for us to film in here because you literally heard, but it's whatever. So if you want to keep updated with me, follow me on my social media. I post all the time, so you can like see what we're up to in between uploads. It's always down below. Go follow me or both of us on our social media so that you can stay updated, I guess. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe and thumbs up this video.